I mean, I'll just jump right into it. Why should or why do Canadians care about US politics and the outcome of the upcoming election?
Okay. There's a lot of reasons. Canada and the US, you can go with that cliched line, we share the world's longest undefended border, but we're just so intertwined with the USA. I mean, I've got Canadian relatives. I'm sure many of the people out there as well have, or sorry, I have US relatives, excuse me. Um, we're tied so closely together economically. Anything that happens in the USA, if they have an economic downturn, inevitably it happens in Canada. So that's probably one of the main reasons is just how connected our two nations are. Coupled with that, the amount of US media that is out there that just bombards what we see up here in Canada, we're always aware of what's going on down there politically. And with that, I think in some senses the way that they manage their media, how it has kind of that punchy edge to it, it just sucks us in.
Um, as far as media goes, how does the role of disinformation affect Canadians' view on US politics?
Not just Canadians, but everybody. I think I mentioned this when I've taught some of my classes and stuff like that. I think back about 20 years ago, and when Stephen Colbert had his show on Comedy Central, The Colbert Report, he coined this term truthiness, which was this idea that if you say something loud enough and often enough, it becomes accepted as fact. And this has been going on long before he even coined the term truthiness. But we're now living in a world that is being subjected to misinformation and disinformation from foreign nations, or just people being idiots online and putting this out there. And it's becoming a problem. I think the main harm that it causes is making or creating a situation where it is significantly harder for people to make informed choices and take informed action because they're not effectively being informed or accurately being informed.
So there are two seemingly different outcomes for the states, and the election has been pretty close.
Right.
So do you think the US is really that polarized, or how does the integrity of the media affect the portrayal of American politics?
So, yeah, with the media portraying things, obviously, unfortunately, in some cases, the media has become more sensationalized. So, if you can have, us versus them, it becomes a good story and helps in that regard. Um, I don't know how polarized the overall population is because you're often hearing just the extremes when it gets amplified, the hard right, the hard left, and they are very loud and very passionate about their positions. There's also a large swath of people who are in the middle, and even in many cases apolitical. They really don't care about what's going on, or just aren't as interested in politics, that type of thing. So when you get these really loud extremes who are in fact polarized, it's their loudness which is being, overwhelming the middle. And I think that's where people are going to start to shift one way or the other. That undecided voter, who are they going to listen to? Whoever's, talking the loudest. Who do they have as friends, family, that type of thing? Do they have more friends and family on one side versus the other? So I don't know if our society as a whole is polarized, but definitely the extremes are trying to portray that.
Um, and could you give a little insight into each candidate's policies that would affect US-Canada relations, especially revolving the economy and the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement?
Right. So Interestingly, I mean, if anybody's been listening to what's been coming out of the States, you'll have probably heard of Trump using his new favorite word is tariff, I think is how he phrases that. And tariffs would have a really detrimental effect on the Canadian economy, especially in terms of our trade. We are very much a resource-based economy. We ship a lot of our resources to the States, and if tariffs get slapped on those, it's going to make things very difficult. By the same token, Harris has used a lot of protectionist language. It's a way for the Democrats now to try to peel off some soft Republicans who don't really like Trump, but they're still conservative. So getting that protectionist, protecting US manufacturing jobs, that's been a big part of her campaign as well. I don't know how significant the protectionism will be under either administration. That will take a while to play out. But right now, Canada, Mexico, US, the free trade agreement, just by the way the last one was written, this has to be renegotiated in 2026. So it's going to play off whichever government is in place in the States, but it's also going to play off whatever government is up here in Canada because there's a really good chance that come 2026, Trudeau will no longer be prime minister, and odds are very high for a conservative government in the future here.
So coming off of that, do you think we're more likely to go conservative with a Democratic win and vice versa with a Republican win? Or how do you see the outcome of our election affecting the outcome of their election, if any?
Yeah, sometimes you might think that we would either fall along the same way the United States does, or maybe just going, we don't like that, so we're going to do something differently. I think right now the U.S. election, Harris versus Trump, is unique in and of itself. Trump is a singularly unique candidate, something that we haven't really seen show up in the United States in a long time. It's charismatic in its own way, just different appeals to a different subset. Uh, in terms of the Canadian election, right now, I think you just simply can't deny that Trudeau is seriously unpopular with a large portion of the population and is having troubles with his own caucus. So right now, unless something really, really strange happens, I think a conservative win up here in Canada is a foregone conclusion, regardless of who wins in the States. That could all change if the Liberals drop Trudeau and pick a new leader. Still think it would be conservative, but it would actually throw a bit of a little bit more mystery into what will be the ultimate result.
And last question, are there any previous trends in a Republican or Democratic run government in how our relationship with them changes?
Yeah, traditionally, they say if we have a liberal prime minister, they get along better with a Democratic president. Additionally, if you have a Republican president, they'll get along better with a conservative prime minister. That tends to be the way that things go. Um, Although it's not too significant. Canada's politics, conservative and liberal, is still far more towards the middle in an overall, political spectrum idea, as opposed to the United States, which seems to be really left, right, a little bit more distinct on that. Historically, though, we saw a great relationship between liberal Trudeau, Democrat Obama. We saw a great relationship, if you go even further back, between conservative Mulroney, Republican Reagan. Um, but right now, I think Trump is a uniquely disruptive type of candidate. So we know historically he did not get along well with Trudeau. He might get along better with Polyev. I don't know if it would be significantly better. Harris, I think, is just kind of that middle of the road Democrat, very professional. in her persona and her presentation of being a politician that I think she could get along reasonably well with either prospective leader right now, both Trudeau or Poilievre.